Are we ready? You guys are holding us up now. Okay.
Pat, you're good at this. Fix it.
Okay. We about ready? We're gonna watch the Super Bowl. Okay, we're about ready. Are you guys close? We do have paper copies. I'd like to make sure everybody on the desk here, there's paper copies. Just in case.
He's not a relation. Yeah, and it's not a very common name. Hungarian. Yeah.
When technology is not
He's
your
got to be
friend.
related somewhere along the way.
Okay.
It's broken.
How much longer? We're trying. When technology bites back. I don't know what number. I think we're here, but I'm not sure. So. What are we gonna start with?
Starting with equipment replacement.
This one, what
Oh.
page?
It's in the one you just received. It'd be page 5.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone, they're working on this. We really need to get started. Everyone should have a hard copy of this here. We ask that everybody have a hard copy of this one here. It's the one that it has the introduction page. Does everyone have a copy? Okay. Has the introduction page on it.
We're prepared to go low tech.
Okay. So we're going to try to get started here. Are we good to go? Okay, sports fans, what page number?
The handout would be page 5. It's miscellaneous, the first slide.
Okay.
First slide. And we're on equipment replacement.
Okay, very good. Okay, everybody got that? Page 5. Under miscellaneous, the first slide on the top, equipment replacement. We'll begin with that. Yes, Sims. Is this the old one? Oh, see page 17. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and dive in.
Replacement is $2,850,000. It's worth $20,000 less than what's in the proposed budget. The total is $1.75 million for police and $1.1 million for public works and replacement of the musical rolling stock. Second item,
Can you give us that breakdown again, please?
numbers on the slide, $2,850,000.
I see that, but you said there's two different,
Police portion is $1.75 million.
thank you,
And then public works, $1.1 million.
1.1 million. No, it's not broken down, that's why I asked for it. So for everyone's edification, the 2.85 million, the breakdown from what I understand is 1.75 million for police and 1.1 million for public works. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ashley. Okay. Okay, thank you.
And the next slide, EMS, fire, and equipment, there's a washer and extractor for cleaning structure fire gear, AEDs, thermal imagers, and rescue equipment.
Okay.
Fire structural turnout gears, annual program replaces fire protective clothing that has expired, and as well as the purchase new gear for the new vehicles.
Very good.
Fire vehicle refurbishment program is another annual program that they use to refurbish bodies on fire and EMS vehicles to extend their useful life.
Yes.
Fire station alerting system, it was formerly called Fire Westnet system, and that's a purchase and implement new system to enhance coordination and improve response time, and that was at board control January 7th for $614,000.
Okay, that's,
Partnership, annual program matching grant.
okay. Sims?
I don't see the numbers that he's saying. I don't see one from 2.85, I don't see 1.75, I don't see the last number you just mentioned. So I'm on page 5. So we're miscellaneous and now,
Yeah, we're in miscellaneous, page 5. You had mentioned the 2.85 million.
2.85 million for police,
That's for police and public works.
1.75 is police. So on the miscellaneous, although that's not here, in this block, it's in miscellaneous, this totals to 2.85?
Yes. If you look on the proposed budget that you have, it went to planning commission, that gives a more detailed breakdown than this slide.
It's this. Okay.
So now we're on police body worn cameras, which would be new handout, page 6, at top 5. And that is $160,000 for needed equipment and centralized cloud storage for digital evidence.
Okay.
The next, four of the next 5 projects listed in the proposed budget have been modified and combined to be consistent with the income tax core handout that the administration turned in. So, I'll read you the new name, which is in the PowerPoint, and also what was in your budget that went to planning commission. So the first item is police recruitment and academies. This combined police citizens academy and police recruiting, hiring, and training. So the total budget now is $155,000, and that's to include training, development, hardware for police academy and citizens academy, as well as funds for recruitment. Police fire and CAD system is $560,000 to upgrade software solutions for dispatching emergency calls and new record management system for the police and fire. Next item is police gear and equipment replacement. This combines the police gear, equipment replacement with the police mask, spectrometer replacement. So the total now is $250,000. And this is for a SWAT tactical body armor, safety equipment, and investigative tools. And this also helps ensure timely drug testing and prosecution.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These dollar amounts that we have they already been sort of like pre-appropriated, meaning vendors selected or whatnot? Or are these expenditures that we're planning for this year, we haven't selected vendors or anything for? Pardon? Okay, if we,
Well, I think can you answer that at this time?
I tell you what, just in general, the reason why I'm asking this question is because from council, we're trying to be intentional about making sure that we are inclusive as far as procurement opportunities from members of our community who have been excluded in the past, meaning the minority community, more specifically the black community, and women that may be in this area where they have opportunities. I just want to make sure that as we go through, every department has, and this is something as a city we have to train ourselves on, but is intentional about making sure that we create opportunities for first, that these companies, if at all possible, are from the city of Akron or this region. And then secondly, that when we look at our total map of folks who are doing business with the city, it reflects our community. That's my reason for asking, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Ashley. Police taser replacement equipment.
Another issue for project purchase of 165 tasers and related equipment, 5-year contract. Police software hardware upgrade was $550,000. Computers, camera, server equipment, security upgrades, one upgrade for software solutions. Next item, St. Mary's Church expenses. This is part of the main driveway project. This would be near South Main and Thornton Street for landscaping barrier. And the city has agreed to put up a fence along there instead of a sound wall. So all that would separate the project from the school.
Okay.
School flashlight and remote access, that's an annual program where they just upgrade their current remote school flashing system with newer technology. Street lighting maintenance, that's another annual program we have for trimming the street trees and street lights. And on to final miscellaneous. Street trees, annual program, replace trees within the city grid. And then the following three items are annual traffic engineering equipment purchases.
A question.
In-house.
Street trees, is this the same as last year?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Sims?
So this is not a replacement of one, two-for-one,
No, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I believe that's within the public utilities budget, correct? Yes, I'm getting nods, yes. Good question. Mr. Ashley?
Just saying that the next three items are annual traffic engineering and equipment purchases that they do in-house installations. The first one is vehicle detection equipment, and that replaces non-functioning microwave detectors with upgraded video detection equipment for improved service, and we're looking at 2 to 3 locations. The rapid, rectangular rapid flash beacon alternative as an installation of Federal Highway Administration approved devices for uncontrolled bike pedestrian crossings at mid-blocks, trails, and intersections. And we're looking at doing 3 locations per year. And then the LED module replacement, which replaces LED lights to be used for useful life. And the final item is the advisory road signal support replacement. And that's replacing configurated signal support. They're looking to do 4 per year upgrades. This was in last year's budget. They didn't actually do any of the installation last year, so that's a continuation of that. So they look at doing this for a 4-year process.
Okay, very good. Yes, Ms. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could we go back to, and I apologize, to the police recruitment and trainings? Tell us just a little bit about how we're going to be using those. Because we already did it. It's okay, I'll get my information later. Please continue. Okay.
Are we at housing? Okay. Yes, Ms. Sims?
On the LED lighting for the traffic lights, I know we talked about this a little bit about plan, whether it's a 10 or 20 year plan, just LED lighting makes sense for us in the city. Are we working on that, or this is not in your bailiwick? Thank you.
This is just we're going around and replacing all the reds, yellows, and greens on every light in town. And the money that's in this is just the buying of the lights themselves. So as we do routine maintenance on the lights, we come across the lights that are not LEDs, we replace those. So it's just an annual item in the budget that allows us to purchase the lights. So as we find lights that need replaced, we have the lights in stock to do so.
So it's not an outlandish question, I'm just asking because some business owners asked us about street lighting that are not.
Well, it's not the street lights themselves that are owned by First Energy, it's the actual traffic lights. The street lights, the LED street lights is a separate program that First Energy is in charge of.
So this is my last part of it. So I was, as you look at capital budget for the year,
currently in discussions with First Energy on developing a plan to do so. And you'll see coming this year with our 10 great streets, we're working with those first as our first priorities to do those 10 great streets with LED conversions. And then we'll look at the remainder of the city because we're talking thousands of lights.
Housing? Ms. Tomic? Good afternoon.
Okay. Am I on now? So the next section deals with our federal funding through Department of Housing and Urban Development. I will say that these numbers are based strictly off of our 2018 funding. Congress has not passed the 2019 budget. And once they do pass the budget, HUD has 60 days to determine what our allocations are. And once those 60 days passed, then every community in the country has 60 days to come up with their consolidated plan. So we will come back with our consolidated plan outlining our CDBG, home, and ESG expenses later in the year. If I'm going to base on what happened in the past couple of years, it will probably be in late July. And we probably won't get our actual allocation from HUD until mid to late September of 2019. So this section is just preliminary numbers based on 2018. Once again, we will revisit those and bring the entire consolidated plan back to council in late July, all depending on what Congress does with the budget.
Okay, are they late or are they on time, or is there any word on that?
Well, they just came back into session.
Okay.
So they are on schedule
Okay.
compared to previous couple of past 3 years.
That's it. Perfect.
We're
all I
thinking
need.
probably sometime in March.
That's cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
So looking at the budget as a whole, we are looking at, there are properties throughout the city that perhaps might be needed to, where we acquire. So we're looking at some strategic acquisition options, and we're budgeting approximately $150,000. Part of the budget also includes partnering with our nonprofit partners, community development organizations, and community housing development organizations. Most of our home funds are restricted for that, so we're looking at about $985,000 with those partnerships. Looking at demolition, we have revised our demolition program, looking at more strategic demolition options. We're looking at about $900,000. That would include vacant houses, garages, and commercial buildings as well. Yes, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Samples.
Thank you. So on the demolition, where we talk about garages, I know we met sometime last year, we talked about how much was going into tearing down and raising garages. Have we set an amount of, a threshold of what we won't go over upcoming this year?
In terms of a dollar amount
Right.
we are reevaluating the demolition program as it pertains specifically garages. So those are some conversations we're going to have with the administration and the Department of Neighborhood Assistance.
Okay, and what about the housing part? Because I know we had quite a few people who were signing demo waivers, and then they were allowed to keep their land even after we tore their homes down.
Yeah, as Helen said, it would apply to that as well. The Department of Neighborhood Assistance is kind of reviewing that since we moved demolition to that department. And the other thing I'll just mention while we're talking about it, the land bank continues to be a great partner on that, so that has allowed us over time to try to work to reduce our budget for demolition so we can use that CDBG for other programs and benefits for the community.
Very good, Mr. Kilby.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, does anybody know the average cost of a demo and how many, this $900,000 will demo, how many houses?
I'm going to say, based on what we looked at before, it's about $10,000 per structure. So that includes asbestos.
Pretty much all of them. If there were newer houses in the mix, they wouldn't, but those are typically not the ones that are demoed.
Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So about in 2006-17,
We talked a little about the challenge when there were nonprofit organizations who thought they could rehab houses, but you only had authority to demolish those because you can't transfer, I guess, ownership. Have we looked at how we look better at that and so we can address some of the potential that exists in some of our underserved communities relative to improving the housing stock? I know Tri-Ministry comes to mind as one of those folks who had tried to access some housing that was slated for demolition for rehab, but were unable to do that because you didn't have transferable powers.
We have more nonprofit, and I'll let Helen jump in here too. We have more nonprofits that are interested in doing that. Like just to use an example, the Well, for example, is working on acquiring and rehabbing homes. There are other CDCs that are interested. I think from the strategic standpoint, the city itself isn't typically the best owner or rehabber of the structures, but we very much want to use the CDBG budget to work to partner with nonprofits and perhaps provide funds to help them get started doing some of the rehab.
So So organizations like Nazareth or Tri-Ministry or Greg's aren't necessarily CDCs, but they are nonprofits. Are we working with them in the same way as you're working with your CDCs?
Yeah, they are technically considered CDCs,
Okay.
and so that we would work with them as well.
Understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
good question.
Thank you.
And a lot of our nonprofits have established relationships with banks as well, so they get a lot of those properties as well. And we work with them for the rehabilitation portion of it.
Okay, Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at this here, and can we get a breakdown on where most of these dollars are going? I'm concerned because, working to get folks identified in my area who are going to be working on projects. And I can honestly say, because it was before this administration even came into being, you would know some of this, have been working on identifying housing and trying to get some understanding on how development was taking place in my ward. I want to make sure that have an understanding of how we're going to invest these dollars because, if we're talking about, I'd just like to see, there's been a word that we've been using, equitable investment. It may be different in some wards. Some wards it may be, tearing down and building new. Others it may be providing rehab dollars. I'd just like to see our plan and how this, if we were to lay our plan over the city, is it equitable as far as how it
As it relates to
God bless you.
housing.
demolition, new construction, rehabilitation.
Every ward is going to need something different. One thing I've shared is I've shared pictures, and when we have this discussion, we have to have, the land bank has to really be more transparent and accountable to the wards, because there's been homes torn down. I've had pictures that didn't need to be torn down. I think one, even Mr. Valley was involved in, the one on Store Avenue, right there off of between Emma and Jefferson. Beautiful home torn down. Guy had put $30,000 into it, and it was torn down. I think of the one that's around the corner, around the way from my business on North Main, that's on that street back there, that we were going to tear down, and they rehabbed it. Now it's a community house. So I know our philosophy is changing to where we're not just tearing them down, but now what I want to make sure is, and this goes back to something we discussed earlier, that my community has a part, an ability to say, hey, this is how we want this work done in our area. Because you could say a CDC, but that CDC may not be a part of that area, that neighborhood where they're living, walking by those homes every day. The community needs to have input. So what I want to see is how this, when we look at the dollars that we have planned for housing, if we lay down, I don't know if we have a predisposed plan on how this is going to be done, but I just want to make sure that, my ward's getting a fair share. Even though we may not have identified clearly who's going to be doing the work, But I want to make sure that the dollars are there so that they can, my ward can have things done. Because this is my, last thing, Mr. Chairman, this is my concern. What I don't want to see happen, and this is where we have to look at other numbers, and this is like, I want us to look at how fast is the land bank tearing down homes in certain wards. And we had always talked about there should be a citizens group that gets to vet those homes before they're actually torn down. And then secondly, the ability to those homes that are in our inventory in that area that can be rehabbed. There needs to be somebody from the ward that has that ability.
Thank you, and God bless you. I'm going to ask that we stick to the issue that's in front of us in terms of the exact, I know where you were going on that, but, and also remind everyone that time is of the essence. In all likeliness, we may have to go into overtime and probably schedule another day to go over the budget here, and time is somewhat of the essence. So I'm just going to ask that we go precisely to the issues at hand. My one question, and I'm going to try to be precise and quick, but on the demolition side, Mr. Segedy, I'd like to work with you in terms of developing a strategy with regards to the commercial side. A year and a half ago, whatever it was, we passed the commercial building,
The vacant building
registration program, knowing that's probably going to be some properties that are going to need to be torn down. I would submit to you that we need to develop a strategy in terms of assessing those individuals. And I think that's where this would be addressed. So I do want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'd suggest we do that in partnership with John Valley.
Absolutely.
And to your point.
And also finance going to need to be at the table, because we're going to, what I'm asking for is a vehicle if someone wants, because oftentimes in terms of real estate, the land is more valuable without the building on there. And if we can offer that to building owners, it would be probably meaningful if they could pay the entire portion or a portion of it or what have you over assessment over a time frame. And I think that's something that would be meaningful for our neighborhood. So.
And I was going to just add, just so council is aware, the VBR funding that we are collecting, it can roll in with that CD dollar amount, which is great because we can leverage more of that.
Yep.
But we'd be happy to talk
And
further about
yeah,
the
let's do that.
assessments and so
We'll
forth.
make a date. Very good. Have it, okay, Ms. Sims?
Just very quickly, and I thought the conversation that Mr. Neal was offering was important, because where we still are most challenged too in some of our underserved communities that are not taking advantage of tax abatements is how do we improve the housing stock absent of new developers coming in and building in those areas. So to continue to have the conversation, it may not seem directly germane, but it is to me, so that we're really,
It absolutely is.
yeah,
No,
engaging
it absolutely is, but I'm just
the
gonna
right
try to-
people in the process, so we don't leave out communities. So again, we're not in underserved communities, particularly in the city, are we really taking advantage of the tax abatement. But there are organizations that are interested in rehabbing houses to bring them up to standard and code, and how do we make sure those resources are available.
I believe we all agree.
And the abatement is available for any rehab over $5,000.
Well, I think we all agree. Thank you. Can we move?
So I wasn't really looking for your agreement, Mr. Chairman. I was just offering, I thought something that
I
was
just
really
want to move
important.
on the agenda. That's all.
Well,
Just get to it.
So the next line
Respectfully.
item is a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. We annually provide them with about $250,000 for the construction of new housing throughout the city. The next item on the screen is just paying for the staff that is charged to the CDBG budget. Then also looking at public improvements, one of the things that we have discussed and we've heard very clearly is the need for splash parks. So we are looking at utilizing federal funds to design and construct 2 new water splash parks in the city. Disability modifications, this is a partnership with a nonprofit to install either railings on showers or ramps on the stairways so folks can have better access to their homes.
Okay, excuse me, we have questions. Mr. Neal first, and then Ms. Sims.
I'll make this real quick, Mr. Chairman. Just want to make sure, here you have program implementation administration, salaries, benefits, and everything. I know that usually shows up in the operating budget, so this is
It
taken...
is. It does. A portion of that is also in the operating budget.
Okay.
Yes.
It's taken out of CDBG.
Yes.
It's eligible
It's also-
because the staff are implementing these programs, and it saves us income tax, basically.
Okay, I follow, but it's showing up right now in the capital. We're looking at it in the capital.
It's showing up as part of the housing and community services portion of the capital budget. So we've traditionally showed it, because this is part of our consolidated plan budget. So we've always shown.
We show it here just so you know where that CDBG
Then
is
We're
going.
going to see
Yes.
it in the operating
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Right.
But
Yep.
when we combine the two, it will be deducted from one.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to add it twice. It's the
That's what I'm
same
saying.
dollar
Thank
amount.
you,
Yep.
Mr.
Right.
Segedy. You follow me?
Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Sims?
That was my question.
Okay, good. Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, let's
Public
keep going.
improvements. The next line item is emergency and transitional housing. This is a straight pass-through on support of our transitional emergency houses. Minor home repair program is a partnership with Christmas and April, no, it's not Christmas, it's Rebuilding Together, where they work with elderly homeowners to make modifications to the home and to ensure that they have access or continue to access to the homes. And the final one is the homeless prevention program. This is our homeless Home Again program that we partner with United Way, formerly known as Infoline. This will come back to council as well. Community Gardens is an ongoing program with Let's Grow Akron, where we provide resources for them to run our community gardens. Community Services Program, again, is a social services program with about 10, 12 agencies throughout the city, looking at youth, seniors. We have something in there for families and security.
Yes,
So
Ms.
I
Sims?
appreciate the speed reading, I really, really do.
Okay,
But
so I'll try to slow down.
Okay, so on the minor home repair, rebuilding together, do we get report outs from them? Because I have gotten requests from residents who didn't feel like their applications were processed, and I don't really know how that works, so that'd be good to know. Is this an increase in the amount of money, 400,000?
It's the same amount
It's
as
the
last
same
year.
amount, and it's
yes.
been the same amount for
For a couple of years.
a couple of years?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And we do ask them towards like October, November to reserve some money, because a lot of folks have trouble when their heaters won't kick on. So we do ask them to reserve some funds for that, so they can do replacement of those heaters for folks.
Okay.
Community gardens, community services, fair housing is an ongoing obligation that we are required to contract with a fair housing provider in Akron, so that is our commitment for that. And then the neighborhood revitalization and sustainability, looking at continuing housing rehab in partnership with our rehab division, looking at our lead program, and additionally our roofing program as well.
Do we? The samples, I'm going to go with somebody else, all right? The samples.
So I have a question about the neighborhood revitalization and sustainability program as it relates to the lead and paint abatement. Can you get us the numbers for last year, how much of that money was exhausted? Because it seemed like we had a lot of people who turned in an application and never
Okay.
received any kind of...
As it relates to the roofing program? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get those numbers. I know they had some deadlines to meet with the lead program, so some of them were put on hold, but we'll get those numbers for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sims?
So on the neighborhood revitalization, for housing rehabilitation, what percentage is this is on the lead abatement, and what is housing rehab?
So most, it is
Lead
it is
abatement?
related to lead in the roofing program, yes.
Okay,
Those are what we get grants from HUD for,
Yes.
so it's targeted to those needs.
so the rehab part of it is maybe fixing something that was,
I would say probably 100% of it is related to the lead cases that
Okay.
we've served in 2018.
thank you.
Too much information, Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where does our roofing program, which one of these pots does the roofing program fall under?
It's in that $1.6 million.
I know.
Okay.
You guys,
Real quick, is that income-based requirement, or can anybody?
It's
apply?
income-based.
Income-based. just a thing, if we can look at how we can creatively find a way to create a program that's not income-based, but maybe using some other dynamics to see if people could qualify. And then last thing, Mr. Chairman, these programs, do we have a special segment when we do like the Better Homes and Garden thing down here? Or if not, maybe we need to create something where our residents could come out and find out about all these.
To get information out.
You know,
to
when they
the
had the
community.
housing program, is there a segment where people could walk through and find out and look at all the city programs and what they could take advantage of?
Yeah, the housing rehab staff, they do a lot of, presentations as well as placement of brochures that we have. So I think if you have places that you would like them to go, that's something you could talk to John Valley about and get the word out.
Yes, sir. I've utilized you guys. You guys are always helpful. But I was just wondering if we had a place where, I mean, there's so much. And we'd also be able to poll our people at the same time. Just a suggestion, even if we just use what's there, and we have a special segment of city programs and services and organizations that are happening, where people could go and find out about this stuff, that would be helpful. Because, I have my ward, but not everybody can make my ward meeting. Yes. Well, I'm sorry.
Subject.
I'm sorry,
I know,
sir.
but I'm trying to stick to the
Okay,
subject
I
matter.
apologize.
It's a great idea, and I agree, but like I said, I'm just trying to stick on subject. That's all, everybody. That's all. I'm not trying to be, just trying to do my thing. Okay, economic development is next. Are we ready?
Okay, so the next section of the budget, it relates to economic and job development.
Very good, Mr. DeShazer.
All right, members of the committee, since we're running short on time, we'll get right to it, but you can stop us at any time. Everything that you see...
I sure would love to see you.
Huh?
I sure would love to see you.
Oh. Thank you. Everything that you see here is part of the foundation activities for economic development. And what you're seeing is that this is preparation tools for development itself. So they do 3 different functions. We retain, we expand, and we attract new business. And this is utilized to have new investments to come too. So the very first one is a brownfield assessment and remediation. Oftentimes we look towards to do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies to make sure that sites are appropriate and that cleanup can be done on those that we know have had problems. If you go into that next section, Middlebury is the perfect example. We've been looking at groundwater migration for a number of years. After monitoring this close for several years, we're going to decommission the test. So the final phase of it is $230,000 that come from the general fund that is set aside. It's a carryover. Everybody knows the success story of Ascot Park. Well over 1,000 jobs there now. However, a full depth pavement improvement will be required for this year. The last time that a full depth improvement was done is over 30 years ago. And as we've attracted new jobs and new commerce, we find now that the traffic and the companies there are looking for replacement. So a full depth will be the first time in 30 years. We are looking forward to doing a lot of opportunity research for projects in the
Excuse
JED
me,
as
Mr.
well.
Sir,
So
excuse
that's
me
the
one
next
second. We
portion.
got a question here, Ms.
So I
Sims.
actually had 2. On the first brownfield, is Lincoln Elementary a part of that? No. Is this a part of the work that NEFCO did? Or
This brownfield is not specific to any particular site, but it's a accumulation for what we think may be a number of sites that come in during the course of the year. Every time we get one, we're going to at least spend about $25,000 to do an assessment. That's a phase
1.
A phase 2 is going to cost more, and depending on what we find in a phase 2, if there is a need to go further, it's going to cost even more.
so we typically get about, what, 3 or 4 or 5 per year?
I would say on average, 3 to 7.
Okay. So the other one was on Ascot Parkway improvements. What portion is that is the TIF?
377,000.
Right here, it says.
You mean the breakout of how much
It
TIF dollars
shows.
are in it?
Okay, I see
In
it.
our
I see
regular
it right
budget?
here, 377,000. Okay, thank you.
Good? Okay, cool. Mr. DeShazer?
Kind of add to that some of the research that goes into preparing for development. these are miscellaneous things. You never know what they're gonna come up. You might need meets and bounds studies. You could have to have aerial photos. You may need to specifically look at the kind of power coming to a site that runs specific equipment. So economic development opportunity research is for that. If you're going to the next area, we're looking at the Evans Avenue development. Remember what we just voted on in December for Evans Avenue? In preparation, we're doing this, and so without naming any companies, we want to position ourselves to be able to respond if there's something that comes in for a package to be developed for inviting newcomers. A new business park in the central city. If you remember in October when we talked about that, this is the first time we've done a new business park inside of the city, in the middle of the core, in about 50 years, since Opportunity Park. So the Firestone Business Park is an extension of that, and you see the Cole Avenue Road extension that goes into it will be a part of it. If I'm not going too fast, we'll
If I could real
continue
quick,
to land.
that is going forward. We're not going to see this next year with a little term at the very end of the paragraph that says carryover. We're not going to see that, are we? I'm hoping not. How is it going? How is it progressing?
No, it's under construction as we
Okay,
speak.
that's
Yes.
that's all I need. Thank you.
And I was instructed that that is closeout costs too, right?
You'll see closeouts next year instead of carryover.
That's what we're looking for.
So,
Closeout costs next.
Perfect, Ms. Sims.
so was the county's Department of Sanitary Service in the original plan?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
So was the county's Department of Sanitary Services, their new building, was that in their original plans?
They came to us after we were exploring putting the park in and said they would be interested in one of the parcels to build their new facility.
So have we already set aside parcels for them to do that?
Yes,
And
they have
so-
one parcel set aside, it's about 5 acres, and they are purchasing that parcel from us.
So that money is not in here, or the cost for that is not in this piece, right? Not in the
You mean for what they're,
3.1,
for what they're paying for it? No, it would not be.
so what are they paying for it?
They're paying to buy the property from the city.
I said, what are they paying for it?
How much? Oh, be about $125,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, as we roll forward, we're specifically looking at parcels that are being assembled in our land banking program. In the Massillon Road Industrial Park, which is there on Massillon Road for the design infrastructure improvements for future development as well.
Okay.
If
Mr.
you
Neal,
go over, we
excuse
have
me, Mr.
A
Neal.
couple of them, but.
Excuse me, Mr. Neal. I'll recognize you, Mr. Neal.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just real quick, and this is a conversation we had earlier, and Mr. DeSager maybe would help us with this. We found out that, I'm looking at all these improvements and they're connected to JED, but the amount we're charging in the JED area for like those services and whatnot hasn't kept up. Can you give us, not now, but at another time, if our JED fees or assessments are in line with other areas? Because in our last discussion, we talked about, we asked, for all the improvements we had to do, is what were our return from the JED dollars, are they covering that cost, or are we losing money on having to cover that? So that's my
That's
question.
separate, yeah.
Because I see JED and TIF, but I mean, that's.
we can do that.
I know it's separate, but
I
I'm sure
understand,
that
yeah.
that Fed,
That's a
that
good
funds
question, but-
funds these initiatives, and so to have a proper understanding if we're properly funding it, that's why I'm asking the
And perhaps
question.
we could schedule a time and
So-
another
so
date
yes.
to do that.
For like the time, we won't do it now,
That's a
but
good
we can
question.
do that, and we'll also give you JEDs and JEDZs, which are the zones where we have a joint venture with another city.
We could
Those
look at
will
that down
probably
the
help
road.
you. We're also looking at the Massillon Road Industrial Park for new development. You know that's in Springfield Township, right? As well as we're looking at the Monroe Industrial Park, which is off of Monroe Road at Gilchrist. These are preliminary plans for the development of those parcels. The Romick Road improvements, which as we go forward, we're looking at the possibility of having new development there, and we want to be able to be ready to go, a ready-to-go site for job development. And
Yes, sorry, Mr. Malkovich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. Mr. DeSager, what specific road improvements are we talking about?
well, first of all, you know, on Romick Road,
Yes, sir.
there's going to be some signaling, there's going to be lines that are, you know, resurfacing, and then in concert with what we're doing, the state of Ohio is putting a new exit, or the feds, I should say, are putting a new exit that's at Romick Road, where it changes names as to State Street and goes into Barberton. So thus why you see the funding sources lined out the way they are. So those exits will then be receiving traffic from the north and from the south.
Romick,
Yes, go
Romick
ahead.
Road is a full-depth pavement. It's a brand-new street.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just one thing quickly. How far along are we in the contract? And who is the, what kind of business is going there? And then how far along in the contract we are? Are we going to do this roadway and they don't come?
Well, this is in preparation for new business. We want to be able to make sure that we are able to receive this new development if it occurs. That roadway, by mere fact that it's in between two highways, needs to be improved anyway. And that is what we plan to do, is to have that ready to go. So it'll be a ready-to-go site.
Thank you, Mr. Station. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, when I looked at the number, the $11 million, it still came to mind, like, kind of like, what's going there? And so what are we preparing for? So it's almost hard to really think about kind of like spending this kind of money and still not know, you know, it's like this elephant in the room, and we're like working around it, kind of like what's going there. That would be helpful, and I hope by the time we get to approving this capital budget, that we have a little more insight into that. I think that respectfully, that we kind of did an agreement sight unseen, so to speak, just to kind of get this thing moving. But I think it's been long enough that we should have a little more information about what's going on there.
Yeah, and all of the stuff that would go forward, when we would put on a contract, would ever come back to.
Yeah, we get it back before, even in terms of this, and respectfully, that $11 million allocation, we would have to approve before it would come forward, correct?
That legislation will come back to council.
You're right,
Yes.
exactly. Okay. Mrs. San, oh, you done?
And it won't
Or
all
did
be
you have another
ours
question?
either. That's the other part of it.
Did you have another question?
So I was saying, what, just even cursory, an approval and not knowing, is still, I think, we deserve to know just a little bit more. Even, you know, even though I appreciate the fact this legislation is coming back before us, but we just like really know basically nothing. But
And I'd like to point out to look at the breakdowns of what we were spending versus everybody else on that line.
About 10%.
Yeah, about 10% of that amount would be totally ours.
Yeah.
The last part of this was the rubber bowl improvements. Those are.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we did have Ms. Samples had a question
Oh, I
before we jump forward.
That's okay. One quick question. How much financially will Barberton participate in these public improvements? Because it seems like they're going to benefit from us doing all.
50,000.
That 50,000 for that
50,000
project.
is their piece?
And 9.1 million from the state of Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yep, perfect. Okay, did you have another?
Good, thank you. That's
so,
it.
although I
So-
appreciate that the state of Ohio is playing the lion's share, we still don't really know much. You know, there may, in fact, be some other project in the city where that money could go. I'm just saying. I realize, again, that the state is playing the lion's share, but I think as a body, it's so important that we just know a little more than what we know. That, I mean, I don't, you know, care at the end of the day who's paying for it, but we don't know anything.
Now,
That's,
Very good. Okay.
we do have projects that, you know, come along with some clauses on confidentiality. That's one of the issues, but in this case, our dollars are really mezzanine dollars, so if the project goes, we'll push it over the top. And that's what our share is. That's why it's about 10% of what the total cost is.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Well, lastly, I was just saying that the Rubber Bowl redevelopment, those are closeout costs for the demolition. Mr. Becker, you might have more to say on this than I do.
Yeah, essentially, the demolition out there is pretty much completed because we are using some state funding as a grant. We have to put a little park in there, which will be adjacent to the Derby. So that's really some of the things that we're going to construct this spring, hopefully before the Derby activities start up this year. So,
Keith?
Can you tell me, though, that doesn't sound like very much, the 20,000 for the closeout and the park, that should be plenty, in your opinion, to do a park?
yes, we just actually got the contract back from the state, so we're going to start submitting some invoices to them to get, I believe it was 50,000 from the state. So we haven't got all the money back from them yet, so that's correct. Yes.
Not from our cost?
No, not from ours, that's correct.
The city's innovation hub happens to be the Bounce Innovation Center. And so we have a set amount of money that's been set aside for operations. It's a part of the operations subsidy.
Okay.
If you look forward to the business corridor development studies and engineering, there's $10,000 that's set aside there too. So those are dollars that may or may not necessarily be anticipated at the moment, and we don't necessarily know what they are, but we know that if they do occur, we need to be ready to move on those. Then, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sims?
so on the $276,000, any portion of that going towards the rehab of the first floor at Bounce?
This is
Or is
all,
that some other money?
yeah, this is all operations stuff that,
This is strictly operations dollars. So is that portion in the capital budget anywhere for Bounce?
The
rehab of the
renovate, the
first floor?
rehab for the project, I don't know if that's another line item or not.
and then we were recipients of some grants from foundations as well that would assist in portion of the rehab and also the addition of the cafe and some of the works that are there to modernize the building.
We received $2 million from the state to do most of the construction work.
So we can get those dollar amounts and bring them out for you at some point and give them to you if you're interested to see it.
So I just want to add this too. So I had a opportunity to be over there recently doing a great work. You know, a few months back when we were, our energy plant, is that
Yeah.
energy plant?
No, well, it was.
But
yeah.
you know which one I'm, over there. A concern, since we're spending dollars, was there were, on the contractors, there were no minorities on the job. There were none. And I know we're kind of working on that. I went through the Bounce the other day, and the same thing. So, as we look at how we're spending our money and our expectations, I just hope that we're monitoring that. I know we talked about the mayor being conscientious about that, so I was pretty shocked to go there to this project and see there was none. So I leave that at your feet.
There is some multi-ethnic and cultural diversity in the staff and people who are working there. And at some point here, soon, maybe we can do another.
No, I appreciate that, and I met quite a few of those on the tour. I'm talking about the folks who are doing the construction work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
The business incentive program's pretty explanatory. Based on job creation, we try to be able to assist in relocations, facade work, signage, things that would enhance a business wanting to be in a specific area for us. Our community development organizations we've set aside a level of support for them as normal. And as part of the TRICA that has been set aside for the county, the city, we also have the not-for-profit business development side through our chamber to support local business through an annual contract. It's the same as it's always been, except it's $100,000. So that's part of that. And a big part of this dollars will be set aside to elevate Akron and the diversity inclusion program. So the majority of this is going to the diversity inclusion program
Talking about which one?
at the chamber,
The CDO or?
the chamber's contract,
Oh, I
the annual
understand that, but
contract.
what pot are we, or what are we calling it out of here? Is that the business incentive program?
That's the
Go-
JED.
go-
It's
Well,
the
go
one
down to
above
the,
it.
go down to the chamber contract, and you'll see it's
Okay,
100,000 total.
Okay.
So, as a part of the Elevate Akron plan, we're gonna hire a vice president of inclusion in it. Mhm.
And that's what this is reflective of.
A big portion of our contribution for this contract will be to bring that person online, to
The
make sure.
inclusion
they're-
coordinator that's gonna be supervised by chamber, or the three
We have that
organizations
trifecta
together?
of three-headed group of people who will all have an eye on what that person does,
Okay.
and that person will also report to all of us,
And this-
not just the chamber.
So this
And
is,
that's what this $100,000 is for specifically? Okay. Ms. Sims?
so this is part of the fifth strategy on Opportunity Akron, I would imagine. So is it
But specifically set aside, though, again,
specifically set aside?
for inclusion. for the
But
inclusion
historically, the Greater Akron Chamber's contract has been about $100,000, right?
process. It used to be 150,
So,
so now it's 100.
so,
That changed in 2016, I believe it was.
so we probably think about a quarter of that, since we have the tri-partners, is going towards that position. But I just want to ask too about the community development organizations, support the local community development organizations. Is that the CDCs? And I know I've talked to Helen in the past about seed money for those startup CDCs that didn't really have the footing that some of the other CDC, is that included in this budget?
Yes, that is part of it. We are looking to release another round of RFPs in the next, probably by summer. It'll be a grant opportunity of up to $100,000. And because they're federal funds, it can't be 100% quote-unquote seed money. It has to be related to a project, and then a portion of those dollars can be used for operating costs.
So technical assistance dollars, so to speak, for those organizations, again, that don't have the footing of some of the other CDCs, that's not included in this?
That's correct.
So-
that would be something that perhaps we can offer some of that, or they can work with an established CDC as a mentoring program.
So I thought, well, anyway, I thought last year when we talked about this, that we were looking at creating resources to support that.
It is I mean, the resources, these funds are available to them, but as a project. So let's say, for example, they want to do housing rehab. There's a house in the neighborhood that needs to be rehabilitated. It could have been on somebody's demolition list. So they apply for $100,000. $25,000 of that can be for operating costs, and then $75,000 can be towards the direct rehabilitation of that house. It could also be any type of business development or any type of quote-unquote public services program that the CDC wishes to undertake, but we can't issue strictly operating dollars to them. It has to be related to a project. And there are other, I mean, if you're looking for technical assistance, there are communities throughout the state that could also provide that as well.
Okay. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Move on. Okay, next.
Without question, small business is still our biggest business in the city, so We still have the small business assistance set aside, that's 50,000 there. And so when you go to the next slide, which says small business and neighborhood business districts, that's where a lot of our attention is going to be focused. So we're having small business in the development center for small business training, classes, skills, things that it requires a business to be well aware of if they're going to be successful inside of our small business areas. This is a direct connect to why we're doing the Great Streets program. And there's been a match there.
Okay. Sorry, excuse me. Mr. Swirsky?
Yeah, well, Zach, could you be a little more detail about small business assistance?
Helen's going to give some details on how that's broken out, and I think that'll satisfy a lot of the questions, but Helen?
So there's actually 4 components to our Great Streets program, and we've heard a lot about what Great Streets is. The first component deals with Great Streets public improvements. So the commitment has been, when we go in these great streets, we look at everything that they need, be it resurfacing. Do they need new street lighting, street trees, benches? So we're doing a lot of outreach to the different businesses within those great streets. So we're reserving about $300,000 of federal funds to look at public improvements needs in those great streets. The second component is $150,000 of enterprise zone funds. These are going to be $10,000 loans to businesses if they need to do something within their business that's interior involved, and that's also related to the previous page is the Small Business Assistance Program. So those are interior types of needs. The exterior portion is $600,000, and that's what we did in 2018, and the recommendation will be another $600,000 in 2019. Anything from new windows, new entryways, new tech pointing within their business exterior facade grants. So we did look, I believe, I should know this, I believe there were like 43 applications that we received. Of those, 37 have been deemed eligible. That is, they are within our boundaries. And then what we're doing right now is staff is reaching out to each and every one of those businesses, working with them directly to kind of drill in a little bit more deeply into what exactly that it is that they need. And then we'll start those contracts probably within the next couple of weeks for the ones that are ready to go. There are some that are thinking, well, I still need a little bit more time. I'm still trying to decide what I need to do. But hopefully we'll have most of them under contract within the next couple of months.
Very good. I would just submit one thing, and that being that within the great streets and budgetarily, and we can have a sideline conversation because that would be the focus area in terms of developing the strategy for tearing down buildings with an assessment. That would be, for me personally, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Ms. Keith, then you had something.
Could you please, I got 3 of the components. Could you just quickly go, public improvement, interior improvement, exterior?
Facade improvements, yes.
And what is left?
The final one is loans. That funding pot is a little bit smaller, so those are up to $10,000 loans. But it's kind of related to the small business assistance portion of it.
Okay, Ms. Sims.
So we walked a couple of the business districts, Great Streets, to talk to businesses. So on the Great Streets improvement, is this some of the things that they were asking for, like crosswalks or track lighting on the street? Is that included in that amount?
Yeah.
It's where, like, the LEDs that you asked about earlier, those kinds of things, we can use this CDBG for some of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sagan, you may know the answer to this. I know we had talked about some additional dollars from one of the foundations for similar upgrades in the Great Streets. We talked about cameras, lighting. Is that is that included in here, or this is straight?
This is so it's not included, but I think just to put in a real quick plug for Great Streets, the reason this is such a great program is because we have focal areas, so we can get foundations
So
and
you can
other people.
leverage, yeah.
They're very clear on where we're investing.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that we can make these dollars go a lot farther. Like when we do facade grants, they're gonna have an impact, because there'll be multiple ones in the same street, so.
So although the money that we got from, I think it was the Knight Foundation, I'm not
I
sure.
believe it was like 130,000.
Yeah, so that's not in here,
It
but
is not. This is-
technically
yes,
it is in, okay.
Correct, and I think
All
that
right.
might be an operating item, but yeah,
And our-
that is not part of this.
And our hope is we get many more of those
Okay,
funds.
thank you
so.
very much.
Mr. Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real briefly, in the Kenmore District, who came up with that design? I know, like, I've listened to the radio, talk radio, and the people are kind of, up in in an uproar about the design of it.
That's not on the...
It was, I can
Just briefly, yeah,
Yeah, I can
'cause
be
it's-
real brief, and we
yeah,
can
it's
talk
not-
later. It was tested at the Better Block, and we had professional designers, and then our engineers put it together. So we still stand by the design.
Thank you. Very good. Samples?
Thank you. So what's the difference between a Great Streets microloan program and the Great Streets program? Because when you read the narrative, they sound almost exactly the same.
So Great Streets microloan is interior. So let's just say somebody wants to start a coffee shop, and they want to buy a washer, a dishwasher, or they want to buy equipment inside. Those are not eligible under the Great Streets facade program. So in that instance, the microloan would kick in. The $600,000 allocated for the facade is strictly exterior work.
And the facade's a grant, and the other one's a loan.
Can we, can you...
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you please provide a summary for council, reference the Great
Absolutely.
Streets and
Absolutely.
exactly what's the opportunities for
Absolutely.
those individuals who own
And we
or
do have
operate?
we do have a website dedicated for Great Streets.
But we
as
can
well.
do like a
Okay.
one-pager that
Yeah.
That
just
would
gives you
be,
a
yeah, I think
Yep.
thumbnail sketch of all.
for all of us. Very good. Anything else on economic development? Any more questions or comments?
So we're
Very
going to
good.
switch out computers real quick.
Switch out computers, okay.
And
I'll be back in a minute.
Sewer.
Let's take a 1-minute break. 1-minute break, that's it. 1 minute.
You've got 54 seconds.
They're still recording.
Are you sticking around long?
Good job. No, you did fine. All the information for them to refer to. It's nice we have all these hard copies kicking around. We're back starting.
All right, very good. Okay, we're going to be on to something else. I've been informed by Mr. Ashley. Excuse us. Some of us are tired.
It has been scanned.
Very good.
You're gonna, are you gonna, then I'll upload it, and you will then,
So we talked a little bit about
you'll certify.
as
Great, okay. Okay, great, thank you.
any money available to support
Yeah, yes.
Okay? Are we about ready to start here? Let's go ahead. let's wrap up our conversations, and let's go ahead and move forward here.
Okay. Actually, I was asking for technical assistance, because they're not a CDC, not really. I ain't really want to keep belaboring it. They just need, you know, seed money to get the kind of technical.
That's what AWR is? Akron Waterways Renewed?
Yep.
I guess that would be one. Okay. Okay, we're going to begin. Again, I'd ask you to wrap up your conversations, please, so we can all hear. Some of us older folks can't hear as well. I'll admit it freely. Akron Waterways Renewed is our next subject matter, which I'm sure everyone is excited about. So we will be moving forward. In all sincerity and in all honesty, I've been having quite a few conversations with Mr. Luddle, Public Works, Public Service, in reference to Akron Waterways Renewed and what we have been doing. And I gotta say, it's absolutely marvelous and wonderful, and keep up the good work. Because it's very meaningful what we're doing, and carrying that message is another piece of this out to the public and letting them know what we're doing. So with that, let's just move on.
The combined,
Waterways Renewed, yeah.
the combined sewer overflow real-time control project will implement a control system to monitor and control wet weather storage throughout the sewer system, including storage basins, the tunnel, and at the water reclamation facility. The Kelly Conveyance Project will upsize the CSO Rack 3 underflow pipe to reduce CSO overflows. The Chittenden Green Project will construct 2 green infrastructure sites in East Akron. The project was bid in 2018 and will begin construction this year. The Dwayne Green Project will design and construct 3 green infrastructure sites in East Akron. The Hazel Storage Basin will design and construct a 4.5 million gallon storage basin. The project was bid in 2018 and is currently under construction.
Okay, just for everyone's edification, hopefully you have the capital budget in front of you, because there's not numbers affiliated with this. And if you need that capital budget, we should have copies in the back.
And we're on page 14 of the actual budget.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Well, actually on 15,
We just
I
jumped to
think.
15.
We're actually on 15. Sorry, Mr. Segedy. You're very
60 seconds.
So, yeah, just so that we can make sure that we're on the same page, literally. And,
The Chittenden Green and Dwayne Green projects in the Kelly Conveyance all replaced a storage basin in our program.
Okay, very good. Just one question. I see all of these, includes the green infrastructure. Did engineering, did you guys develop, like what that cost would have been had we gone to the gray versus the green? I know, do you have those numbers and what the differences are?
We evaluated the green versus the gray in our integrated plan,
Right.
in evaluating the alternatives, so we do have the costs available.
I think
when we evaluated
that would be interesting to find out, like on a per project basis, if you don't mind, if you have it easily accessible. Obviously, the green is much better, and I know that there's a cost savings typically attached with that. So I think I would like to see the information and would share with everyone.
The Euler, on the next slide. The Euler Conveyance Optimized Alternative will upsize sewers in the RAC 27 and 29 area to reduce CSO overflows. The project is currently under construction. The Gorge Sewer Separation Project will study the feasibility of complete separation of the CSO RAC 34 and 35 drainage basin as an alternate to the North Side Interceptor Tunnel. The North Side Interceptor Conveyance will study the replacement and upsizing of the existing North Side Interceptor Tunnel, also providing inline storage and reduce overflows. The Canal Interceptor Tunnel is the continuation of construction of the tunnel project.
The question on that one, we're on time? Are we on time on this one? OSIT? Are we on time?
Yes, Pat Selman. We are a little bit behind. Right now, we're anticipating August, late August, early September for putting it into service.
Okay, good.
but that's in-service date, so there'll still be more construction after that, but we hope to be putting flow into it early fall.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Ms. Sims?
What phase on the canal interceptor tunnel are we? Is the overall project is 275?
Yeah, the boring's been completed, it was completed in August, and now they're doing the surface work.
So this is phase,
It's all one project, one big project.
They're completing it.
so the overall cost is 275 million, right? Was that 200 and?
75 million,
So
300.
$275 million. This portion of the cost was 42 million, so we don't have this divided into phases?
Well, it's big years. The costs are broken out into what years they're expended.
That was the total estimated cost, 275.
So, yeah, this is the third year or fourth year? Third year? Fourth year. This is the fourth year. So you only see the cost of that project for the upcoming year.
So we're just about there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
We're
start
complete it in
all of
August.
this year, yes, and then we'll have a little bit next year. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Okay, good.
The Ohio Canal Interceptor Tunnel Odor Control Study will design and construct odor control facilities for the tunnel project.
Yes, Ms. Keith?
Do we know the locations of those facilities?
There will be an activated carbon system at the OSIT 1 site, which is a site that's near Hickory Street. And there will be a vent pipe at the OSIT 3 location, which is on Exchange Street.
Okay. Very good.
The CSO Program Management Team provides for the program management for implementation of the city's CSO consent decree and integrated plan. The CMOM 5-year cycle implements the CMOM program to clean and inspect the sewer system every 5 years. We are in the second 5-year cycle for that program.
Is there a question?
No.
So the,
Ms. Sims?
so on the management part, is this the 6.5, is that salaries? Or is it the CSO's program management team, is that salaries?
It's for the actual cleaning and televising done through our contracts with contractors.
Are you asking about the program management or the CMOM?
Oh.
Which one?
Are you looking at the first one there?
Yes, the program management team.
Yeah, we still have our integrated team between the city and the consultants, and this basically is for that team. So a lot of it is salaries, and that includes, we have obviously we have a lot of reporting we have to make to US EPA. It includes all of the document management for that system. It includes design support. It includes us, we're still doing this integrated planning process to look at the north side, so it includes that process. All of our scheduling, estimating is all through that group, and also our hydraulic model is part of that group. The people that actually do our hydraulic model for the system is part of that.
Capital budget makes it cleaner and easier to see.
Yeah,
Kind of like the item that you asked about before with the CD funds.
yeah.
The Cuyahoga Street Storage Facility rehab will make improvements to the existing storage basin to improve performance at that basin. The flow monitoring rain gauges will continue the collection of rainfall data used in modeling and supporting our sewage collection system.
Okay.
The Grand Park Avenue sewer improvements will design and construct improvements to the sewers on Grand Park Avenue to alleviate sewer backups. The Hampton Ridge sanitary sewer will install new sanitary sewer to replace the Hampton Ridge
I'm
pump
sorry.
station.
1 second, please. I'm a little bit behind. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
The Hampton Ridge project was bid in 2018 and construction will start this year. The Hawkins Trunk Sewer Area improvements will study the Hawkins Trunk Sewer Area to identify sewer capacity issues and recommend improvements.
Question is that gonna, will that help with the flooding? Because I know that's what this is identifying, and that's what this is gonna
Yeah, we've studied that area. This is the next phase of the project.
Okay.
We're looking at an area that they think, it would be for
So-
basement backups, not surface flooding.
Right, yeah, well, that's
Okay.
what I'm asking about, is the
Okay.
basement flooding
Yes.
that we've had. So this particular piece here, it says sewer capacity issues and recommend improvements. So is this like a study?
Yes.
And the results thereof?
The results may result in
It's
a
going to be
capital
obviously
project for
a
next
little
year.
bit more than 175,000.
Right.
Yes, Ms. Keith?
Would this also hinge on the fact that we're looking at some development over in that area too, to
We're at
help possibly
page 16.
remediate what's already happened, but also avoid additional?
Flooding.
Yes, correct.
And she said this is basically going to be a study that's going to tell us what we got to do to fix the problem.
The Mayfield Avenue sewer improvements will replace and reline sewers on Mayfield Avenue.
Okay, question on that one there, Mayfield Avenue. This is, I think it's going to be important that we replace the bricks as is. Is that going to be part of the program?
I believe it's
Mr. Hewitt? The brick replacement?
yeah.
We will be doing restoration with bricks, but the majority of the work is through easements and backyards. It's sewer lining, so there won't be as much of a disruption to the street. The original plan was to actually lay a new line down the street, and we figured that was way too much disruption to the neighborhood. So we found some alternative ways to skin this cat, and we got a good plan going forward.
Excellent. Mr. Swirsky?
Yeah, so we're not disrupting the street, correct?
That's what
There will be some isolated pieces where we have, for manholes, where we have to do lining to have access, but we will restore,
A few manholes, how many manholes?
I don't know offhand, but the majority,
I have the impression we were leaving that street alone, for the reasons you just described.
the street will stay, and we'll restore wherever we disturb with bricks in kind. But-
3 manholes.
Yeah,
So all the bricks are staying,
that is correct.
the median isn't being affected.
That is also correct.
That's one of the nicest streets in Akron.
That's why you left on an alternate
Mr.
method.
Swirsky, there's a lot of other nice streets in Akron, too.
I said one of them.
Just
There's one.
teasing, just joking. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. On to miscellaneous collection systems improvements.
The miscellaneous collection system improvements project will perform septic tank elimination studies, commercial sewer lateral replacement, and vehicle and equipment replacement. The Quaker Ridge Pump Station reconstruction will reconstruct an existing pump station located near I-77 and Ridgewood Road. Sand Run Road emergency repairs will make repairs to, the sewer will be reconstructed from Sand Run Road to North Woods Drive in that area. The sanitary sewer reconstruction 2017 will perform rehabilitation of sanitary and combined sewers and manholes by point repairs, replacement, or construction lining. The next 6 projects are all sanitary sewer reconstruction projects, large diameter lining and small diameter lining. They're all projects that were identified through our CMOM program as needing repaired. So we're now on page 17. The Sevilla
yeah,
Trunk Sewer Reconstruction
located?
Project will replace the Sevilla
Excuse
Trunk
me?
Sewer.
Excuse me if I could. Yeah, these projects, where are they located? The,
Page 17?
Sanitary sewer,
Oh.
large diameter lining, these lining projects, where would they be located at?
From
or-
16, from the bottom of page 16 to...
I mean, in terms of, is
Oh.
it particular streets?
Oh, no, throughout the city, citywide.
Throughout, so this is the whole thing. I'm
Right.
just curious why it wasn't lumped in under one, and I see 18, 19, 20. What's the difference? I'm just not certain. Oh, the different sizes? Or-
The large diameter versus the small diameter is the difference in sizes. The 3 projects represent different groups of assets that will be repaired under the project.
Okay.
So they're in various stages of design and construction.
Okay, so these are all over the, gotcha. Mr. Swirsky?
Sustainability initiative, sounds good.
Oh, I don't think we're not quite to that point yet, Mr. Swirsky.
Yeah.
So once we get there,
Yeah.
go ahead.
The
We'll recognize you.
The Sevilla Trunk Sewer Reconstruction Project will replace the Sevilla Trunk Sewer. It was bid in 2018 and will begin construction this year. The Shoreline Pump Station Improvements Project will make improvements to the Shoreline Pump Station to support the Greens at Nesmith Lake housing development. The Zurich Road Pump Station Project will will be a complete replacement of the Zurich Road Pump Station. Sustainability issues is installation of sewer backwater valves to prevent basement backups, and would also include a rain barrel program for stormwater management.
Mr. Swirsky. So you don't have a question now?
It's also installation of sewer backwater valves to prevent basement backups. Yes.
Yes, and if I might add, Councilman, sir, we also are going to have the rain barrel program again this year, and it's going to be concentrated around our Cuyahoga River homecoming on June 21st. So it's our open house, and we're going to have the special program associated with that. So we will have rain barrels again this year, and trees also.
And the special event is part of this money, or all that money goes for the materials?
It would be part of the program monies. So these would actually be a separate group that might be available.
These would be attributed to helping prevent
Yes.
basement backups. So these would be tied to
So they'd be
improving that.
specific.
It's, yeah.
Two
Right.
programs.
Under the
Yeah.
sustainability initiative.
No, the AWR rain barrel program would be funded under the AWR program. These rain barrels would be funded to address,
Rain barrel program.
yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Sims.
I've already said this one. On the sanitary sewer reconstruction, it has 18, 19, and 20th, and 220. Are we not doing the one project till next year? Is that why you have 18, 19, 20?
Yeah,
Or-
we're starting preliminary design of the projects. So
So we'll do the preliminary designs this year, but the project to be started in 2020. Is that what?
yeah, we would
okay.
intend for it to be constructed in 2020.
And so 2018, this first one, we've already started.
Yep, we're finishing up the design of that project and bidding it.
And the
Gonna be bidding it this
2019,
year.
the same thing?
Right. We're
With,
working on going to
Okay.
be working on the
so
design this
do
year.
we anticipate doing the 2019 this year, since we're done with the design portion of it?
We're going to be finishing up the design this year. It may be bid at the end of 19 or beginning of 20, so.
So technically, probably, we were looking at carryovers for next year to actually do the project?
Right.
Because, right, okay.
Right, for construction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The Talmadge Master Meter Facility reconstruction will reconstruct the existing Talmadge Master Meter Facility above ground to allow for safer access.
Is that, does Talmadge participate in that, or, I know we have an agreement with them, which probably outlines who shares and what costs, but just curious. Might want to check it. That's all I'm saying.
The master meter station it's the meter station of where Talmadge is.
Oh, I know
It's
it's
our
all
station
about
so
it.
that we can bill them based on strength and volume on what their
I know all
sewage
about
they're
it.
sending to us.
I'm just gonna, believe me, I know more than I care to about that agreement. But I'm just asking, check it out, just to make sure that there's no participation from them. That's all I'm asking.
The White Pond Drive Pump Station replacement is just closeout charges for the construction project that was completed. The Brewster Creek Restoration Project is to perform a study of Brewster Creek to determine causes of flooding and make recommendations to reduce flooding and improve water quality. The Erosion Stream Breaks Restoration Stormwater Project would include various stormwater improvements, including stream break restoration and erosion control. going forward with this project is pending approval of the integrated plan. It was something we included in that plan. The Little Cuyahoga restoration near Rack 27 is for the preliminary design of river restoration work that results from the relocation of a sewer crossing on the Little Cuyahoga River.
Excuse me, is that New Hazel? Is that one?
No, it's actually under the Euler conveyance project.
Okay.
The Little Cuyahoga River Phase 1 land acquisition is land acquisition to purchase a riparian corridor to use for future river restoration. The local flooding pipe project would include the construction, repair, and rehabilitation of storm sewers, culverts, and other structures that impact local flooding. This is another project that we submitted with our integrated plan, so moving forward would be contingent on approval of that plan.
Okay.
The miscellaneous storm sewer improvements is design and construction of miscellaneous storm sewer improvements throughout the city. Stormwater maintenance ditches is an annual project for maintenance of ditches that carry stormwater. This is also another project that is pending the integrated plan approval.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Sims.
So typically on the design portion are these projects so far different from one another, we wouldn't be trying to bundle these to reduce the cost for everybody?
On the, which particular one?
But if you're referring to the local flood project and the stormwater maintenance and ditches, there are no projects presently. When we submitted our integrated plan to the government, we tried to outline what we projected all of our anticipated costs would be for stormwater, sanitary, and CSOs. So these are essentially placeholders in our integrated plan pending approval of the government. So we haven't started any designs. We're not sure what those projects would be yet. So they're essentially placeholders for that type of work if the government approves our integrated plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to the water reclamation facility, the annual plant and pump station renewal project is for improvements miscellaneous improvements at the water reclamation facility and pump stations.
Mm-hmm.
The WRF Biosept project is for design and construction of a new biological chemically enhanced primary treatment system to provide treatment of wet weather flows over 220 MGD.
Can you break that down in like layman's terms, what that means?
We currently are able to take 280 million gallons per day into the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
So 200, with the completion of one of the next projects we'll talk about, the Set Feed Phase 2 project, we can treat 220 million gallons per day through our secondary treatment process.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves 60 million gallons per day that doesn't go through the secondary treatment project.
Okay.
And get biological
That's gonna be
treatment. So this process will provide biological treatment of that remaining 60 million gallons a day. So once this project is completed, we will get biological treatment of our full 280 million gallons coming to the plant.
I think we're all with you.
Okay.
Thank you for putting that in simple terms. Ms. Sims has a question.
Are they all in close proximity to one another? Okay, so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
All the water, all the plant.
Reclamation, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
all
all
at
on
the
the
same
plant.
location.
But, cool, thanks.
The WRF Headworks project is for design and construction to upgrade the Headworks facility to provide that 280 million gallons per day treatment.
That's what we're talking about. Yep, thank you. But that's a
And-
carryover, so,
Yeah.
very good.
The WRF Step Feed Phase 2 project is for complete the construction of increasing our secondary treatment system to the 220 million gallons per day.
Very good.
So we're moving on to the JED projects. In Copley Township, we have the Copley Road Sanitary Sewer Project, which is the design of a sanitary sewer extension from Aberth Drive to Jacoby Road. The North Plainview Road sewer project would be design of a sanitary sewer on North Plainview Road from Copley Road to 2,500 feet north. In Springfield Township, we have the Canton Road Water Main Project, which will relocate an existing 16-inch water main project on Canton Road due to conflicts with an ODOT project that's proposed there. And then the JED extension studies is just for studies that may come up to develop project limits for sanitary sewer and water extensions in our JED areas. In the JED service area extensions is for design and construction of sanitary sewers and water service area extensions. So there's no specific project spelled out for those two.
Correct. Hopefully you get some,
So we're going to switch gears real quick.
good water.
Yes, and technology as well.
Good luck.
It worked.
Thank you. Well done. All righty.
Okay, good
Yes,
evening.
sir, Mr. Bernowski. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm glad that you have to talk very fast, because we could conceivably get this done.
Maybe not, never mind.
Okay, we're going to start off with the Water Distribution Division, and the Water Distribution Division is responsible for 1,200 miles of pipe and multiple pump stations and force mains, tanks, and standpipes throughout the city of Akron, as well as a number of neighboring communities. The first project on the list is the Archwood Pumping Station improvements, and this project is intended to add a second operating pump to the current pump that we have there now. Having redundancy is critically important when you're keeping a high service district in service.
Okay.
The next project is the Britton Road Reservoir replacement, and this is to cover design fees in 2018, and this is intended to design a project to replace the existing Newton Street Britton Road Reservoir. This reservoir is approaching 100 years old and is a critical piece of infrastructure for water.
Very good.
The next project is Druid Drive Neighborhood Water Main Extension. The total project cost is $1.3 million, but we're proud to say, and thanks to Mayor Horgan's support, we were able to receive 75% principal forgiveness on this loan, so about $1 million is going to be forgiven on this loan, and it's going to add a couple properties to the JED. It's going to provide water to customers that are really struggling right now, and it's going to provide water to the Copley Middle School as well as Arrowhead Elementary School, so it's a wonderful project. Eastwood Pumping Station, and this is simply a carryover from last year, and construction has been completed on that, we're proud to say, and this is one of those high service districts, and it'll give us, once again, more redundancy and emergency backup ability.
Okay.
Next project is a force main steel transmission study. So there are a number of miles of pipe from our water plant in Kent into the city of Akron, and there's about 8 miles of that is of original nature. So it's original steel main. So what we need to do is evaluate how much service life and its current condition is, and ultimately with the intention of replacing it based on the findings of that evaluation.
Okay, how old is it?
Those force mains are the original force mains, so 1915 in some cases, the oldest sectional line.
Okay, thank you.
On that same line, and this will be done with this project, with that previous project I mentioned, but there are some valves as well that need to be evaluated for their condition and looking at trying to replace those valves. This project here is, go ahead. Yeah, it's 8 miles of pipe, and what they do is they use some very elaborate techniques to identify the corrosion along that entire steel main, and this not only includes like the outer inspection, but also the interior inspection. So there's just a lot of force main there that needs to be evaluated, and they use some very elaborate equipment in order to perform that. And in many cases, it needs to be done when it's in service. So all these different complications add to those costs.
Yeah, so you're gonna send a camera down the pipe, basically.
Yeah, in some cases,
In simplest
cameras,
terms, but-
ultrasonic technology is
Yeah.
used in some cases. They use different types of cathodic-type corrosion evaluations that they do to ensure that...
That's gonna give you an idea too, though. I mean, in terms of, like, if you have to phase it in over time, where to go first and...
Exactly, exactly.
Well, just on the spec study, it just seems like a lot, but to hear the details, maybe.
Yeah, and 8 miles is a lot of pipe as well, so that will add to it. Thank you. Kenmore Boulevard, there's a section of line that is out of service right now, and so in order to improve the fire flows in that area, to improve circulation, to improve water quality, we finally need to essentially perform this project, which is going to be a boring under the railroad tracks of about 280 feet, and it could be up to 12-inch line in order to perform that, and that will be a great improvement to water circulation in that district. Lead service line replacement program. So in 2018, we were able to replace up to 200 lead lines, one with an outside contract that did about 80, and the additional ones were done by water staff. This year is another project that will get us up to about 80 lead lines that we intend to replace, and it's just our ongoing efforts to remove the lead within the city's right-of-way. And we're probably now, we started, well, we anticipate way back there was about 50,000 lead lines in the Akron water system back in like the 1950s. We're down to about 4,000 now. So there's been a significant effort over many, many decades in order to remove that. So we're very proud of that. No community is in this type of situation that we are, where we know exactly where they are and have a plan to remove them going forward.
So on an annualized basis, how many did you say? I'm sorry.
About 200 right now
200, okay.
is where we're at. And so this money is done, is going to be dedicated to an outside contract where they will go from lead line to lead line, and then we internally with staff remove them at a pace of about 125 or so a year.
Okay, very good, thank you.
This project is to make some improvements in Hudson to multiple water lines that are failing in the Hudson area. Hudson is being charged a capital project surcharge, so these funds are for funds that are specifically dedicated to Hudson improvements. Yes, the Middleton Road project is going to begin construction in about 2 months, and will definitely be complete before the end of the year. Vehicle and equipment replacement, and you're going to see this slide not only in distribution but also at water supply, and so we're looking to update the fleet, get some pickup trucks, and yes, we are going to fit these trucks for snow removal opportunities as well. So as we look to the future and collaborate with other divisions, this equipment will have the capacity to move snow. This here is the 2017 water main replacement, and that is it's going to be under construction and completed in the summer. So that project there. Now we also show the 2018 and 2019, and simply the 18 is a carryover to 19. So in total, we have the 17, which is a dedication of about $2 million to these water main replacements, and then another $3.3 million. So it's somewhat deceiving as the way it's shown here, but those $18 are simply a carryover to 19.
Okay.
Okay, so the Eastwood tank is one that we're going to be painting this year, and if anyone has seen the condition of that, it's definitely in need of painting, so this is a $1 million dedication to the painting of that tank, and typically these tanks are in need of paint every 15 to 20 years, and so this is definitely a service life. West High Pumping Station, and we would anticipate, I know we're showing 1.3 million for the year, but that's likely just going to be, the total project cost is 1.3 million. We will be able to initiate design, but I find it hard to believe we're going to be able to construct it this year, so likely the construction side of the 1.3 million will transfer into 2020. But the design of this critical pump station,
Okay,
once again,
Jeff,
I serve.
excuse me, Ms.
Yep,
Sims.
go ahead.
$1 million for painting, do we, I understand they need to be painted for 10 to 15 years. Do we do like maintenance watching so we don't have the stream costs?
Yeah, there is an intensive inspection process that we do. In a lot of cases, though, there's only so much you can do with paint. I mean, we do our best to ensure that, say, a cell phone provider, for example, is not in any way damaging the coating around the tank. But for the most part, it's about the way in which the paint is applied and using the right epoxy coatings and such to ensure that you get a long life, because outside of that, there's not much more you can do. So these projects, these painting projects that we do are done to the highest standard that we could possibly do. All the prep work that goes into before you place the paint down, those are all critical steps to ensure that you get a long service life.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The next is we're going to talk about the water plant, and we're proposing to dedicate about $85,000 to look at some advanced treatment. There are a lot of new regulations in place with regards to algal toxins, with regards to disinfection byproducts, and we're doing a great job meeting those regulations today, but as these get more stringent, we're going to have to consider some advanced technologies. So this is one of those advanced technologies that we're going to consider. That's pretty wild. This project here is the caustic day tank and metering pump replacement. This is in our West Chemical Building, and this is a critical chemical for ensuring that there is not lead in the distribution system. And so this facility is close to 20 years old in age, and so we're looking at those caustic day tanks, making sure that those are appropriate. The metering pumps that feed it are becoming outdated, and some of the pumps aren't available anymore, so we're looking at a better pumping system. This is a discharge header surge valve automation project, and what this is for is if you ever have a quick shutdown at the plant and you get these pressures that come back on the plant, in an effort to protect the plant from major flooding or damage to the plant, we have these surge anticipation valves that blow water off into like a field type area. And essentially these are in need. It's been since 1970 since they were really looked at in great detail. So this project is intended to automate those valves and not have them in a manual state. This project here is one where it's associated with the disinfection byproducts, it's associated with algal toxins, it's associated with keeping organics down, but it's going to optimize the way in which we feed powder activated carbon. And powder activated carbon has become like one of the best tools water utilities have to meet a lot of the current regulations that have gone into effect. And this will improve the way in which we feed a powder, which we're not used to that. Usually it's liquids that we feed. This is a powder, and so it complicates the feed process. Okay. Filter building ventilation improvements. Here you're looking at a photograph of the original, 1913 is when the plant started construction, went into service in 1915, and we're finding that, we're starting to get we're getting a lot of drafty areas, leaky areas. We're having problems with the ventilation system, the humidity, the temperature control, and so the intention here is to put in a number of different vents and improve existing vent and humidity systems.
Okay.
In our lab is about 30 years old now, and they're having trouble with the HVAC, and so it's no longer serviceable. A lot of the equipment is not supported, and so we're going to need to make some major improvements in our lab with respect to HVAC. We're looking at locker room improvements as well, especially being a 24/7 operation. We have a lot of staff that's there, many of ours, you need to get cleaned up and such, and so we want to make some improvements to that.
Okay.
We have a multitude of miscellaneous, and this is kind of a catch-all for a number of improvements associated with hydraulic, structural improvements to areas around the plant. And then safety improvements, and this is primarily electrical, confined space, chemical-related safety improvements.
Okay.
And then we're looking at a roof replacement on one of our existing buildings that we have there that previously housed the caustic and fluoride facility. We want to invest in updating the fence. The fence is pretty old and dilapidated, and security obviously is very important to us. So we're looking at investing $16,000 in improving some fence around the water plant. And then once again, I mentioned vehicles. We're in need of a couple vehicles at the water plant. And then finally, there's the watershed division. And in the watershed, the East Branch Dam, constructed in the mid-1930s, has some tow drain improvements that are necessary, and ensuring that you keep water away from these dams and these dikes is one of the best ways to ensure that they remain stable and you don't have washout in certain areas. So this project is intended to do some improvements to the East Branch Dam. The next two line items are related to Eckert Ditch. Eckert Ditch is a tributary to the Cuyahoga River that discharges directly into Lake Rockwell, and we found that there's a tremendous amount of pollution coming through Eckert's Ditch. So Jessica Glocheski, our watershed superintendent, and several others applied for some grant funding and was able to receive $776,000 for that project, and then another $237,000 on the next project, and all of it with the intention of improving water quality to this tributary that is directly into our primary reservoir, Lake Rockwell. So that's going to be a wonderful project, and we're looking forward to the benefits that we receive from that. And then next project is the hazardous spill containment system at State Route 14. And the intention here is State Route 14 is a major thoroughfare that crosses right over Lake Rockwell. And any type of spill that may occur, tractor trailer, chemicals, oil, gas, you name it, that could be on Route 14, as of now, could fall into Lake Rockwell. So we're looking at building containment areas to capture that, similar to a project that was done on Meander Reservoir off of Route 76. So.
Yes, Mr. Malkovich.
Thank you. I made it a point this summer to go out to Lake Rockwell. Boy, it's beautiful out there. And some of those roads are really like windy, and I'm trying to pinpoint exactly where that was.
So it would be on the northern and the upstream end of Lake Rockwell, and it's not quite an interstate, but it's pretty close. I mean, it's it's a very traveled road. It's also somewhat windy. It has had a number of accidents that have occurred there, and so we have fear that, God forbid, someday you'd have a major spill, you know, we want to be able to protect from that.
Miss Keith, then Miss Sims.
Thank you. Jeff, can you tell me, I actually thought we had already started to address that, this last one you were talking about with the construction of a hazardous spill collection, because I can recall maybe in our last budget cycle, we had talked about that.
That was previously in design. And so
Okay.
the design has completed. And so construction is expected this year.
Well, when I see carryover, that means that the design has been completed, and this is now the next phase of the,
Yeah.
okay.
We had expected for construction to begin last year, but
Okay.
delays in design has pushed it to this year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's
Okay, very good.
okay. Are we good? Okay, very good. Afterwards, if we can get together, Helen, you and I. If there's anybody, we had talked about the South Hawkins, maybe Jim, you could help us with that previously, and Council Representative Neal wasn't here. That affects his ward directly, so we want to talk about that briefly. Separate. Give council members 12 minutes to kind of chill before our 7 o'clock meeting. We just want to thank everyone for their patience with regards to this budget review. And Helen, what's our time frame now from here on in?
So we are going to submit a budget amendment. So depending on comments, or we could either pass it on the 4th, or it absolutely has to be passed by February 11th.
February, I'm sorry?
February 11th.
Okay.
That's
Thank
when-
you. Thank you all. So, Jim.